start.
And the Boston Celtics are 68 for Maravich.
Hey everybody, this is Moscow from Moscow's 2 Cents. I love this topic. Everybody has this topic. Everybody has done it from one sport to another, and everybody argues about why did you put this one at number 5, at this, what did you pick? It's all, I love this, okay? This is barbershop conversation at its finest, okay? Now, this top 10 list that I'm doing is my own views. What I believe and why I believe that person is ranked between 1 and 10, which, by the way, I'm going to do 1 through 10 plus also 3 honorable mentions, which for whatever reasons do not qualify, but I love these players so much, and I don't think anybody knows nearly enough about these players, okay? They maybe know some basics, but they don't know anything about those players. So hopefully you shine some light on those players and encourage you to do some research on your own and learn about the complexity and about the talent of these players. So let's get right into it. I'm going to try and limit it about 3 or 5 minutes per player. There's going to be shortcuts at the description, 1 for the honorable mentions, 1 for the bottom 5, and 1 for the top 5. And yeah, like, comment, subscribe. Let's go for it. All right, so honorable mentions. I'm gonna mention 3 players that, for me, the reason they're honorable mentions is because I believe that these 3 players are intergenerational players, meaning you can take these players and put them in today's game. You can put it 20, 30 years ago or whatever, that kind of thing, and they will still be extremely impactful players, all-star caliber players. They're that good, you know, they're that dominant. Okay, so my first one is going to be Elgin Baylor. For those of you who don't know Elgin Baylor, you probably heard of him by name. You heard of him because other people, other pundits, everybody's talking about them, but nobody really knows how good he really was. Okay? Now, he played from 1957 to 1972. He was on the original Minneapolis Lakers and stayed with the team when they became the Los Angeles Lakers. He came in after they did all their title runs and basically retired right before the team won again. So yeah, so he had the unfortunate misfortune basically of being basically running up against Bill Russell all the time. He played with Jerry West. He played with Chamberlain as well. He played with a very good, solid team. It's just that he couldn't win anything. So he doesn't have a title. And all he needed for me, it was just 1 title, 2 titles, something like that, and he would have been in there. But so stats-wise, he's covered. He wasn't winning, and in my opinion, he was in the wrong decade. He should have played in today's game, and he would have been like Harden, basically, but he with more finesse, more wow factor, in my opinion. He was just that unbelievable of a player. I mean, look at his stats. Almost 850 games played. He scored 27.4 points per game, 13.5 rebounds a game, and 4.3 assists per game. The guy was 6'5", 225 pounds. He was not a 7-foot center, and still 13.5 rebounds a game. For me, that is ridiculous. Yeah, it's unbelievable. I don't remember the last time we saw a 6'5" anybody score 13.5 rebounds career. We have some of the most powerful centers and dominant centers in the world in the history of the league that don't average 13.5 rebounds a game. So he was just on another level. The guy is just amazing. Some of the highlights, for example, is he scored 71 points in a game. That at the time was the record. It was broken by Chamberlain, that kind of thing. I mean, he was a machine when it came to that kind of stuff. The record that I found that still holds, he scored 61 points in a final game in 1962, Game 5 to be precisely. This is based on research. It's not like I lived at that time and I know it. As I mentioned, I'm a student of the game and I try to learn. And that guy was unbelievable. That record still stands. With all the high scoring game that we have now and that kind of thing, nobody could break a record that is essentially 56 years old. He's that good of a player. He's that amazing. So that's Elgin Baylor. Do some research on him. I encourage you to learn more about him. My next player, everybody has him on his top 5, on their top 5, his or her top 5. I don't, because as I mentioned, the credentials list. And that is Will Chamberlain. What? Will Chamberlain, most amazing stats line in the history of the league. He is the record book of the NBA. The guy played from 1960 to 1973, 30.1 points per game, 23 rebounds a game, 4.4 assists. That is obviously incredible. All the records books are his. Of course, everybody knows about the 100-point game that he had, that he averaged 50 points and 24 rebounds that season. Maybe they don't know the 24 rebounds, but I definitely know the 50 points. Everybody's about points. But he got 2 titles. Yes, when he was in Philadelphia, he beat Bill Russell one time. I'll give him credit for that. But Bill Russell owned him. Okay, he owned everybody. That period from even in the late 50s, but let's focus on the 60s. This entire 60s, with the exception of 1967, where Philadelphia beat him, it was all his. Okay, there's no dicking around. Like Chamberlain just could not do anything. Why for me is an honorable mention? He's amazing. Obviously, there's no denying. If you put him in today's game, he will dominate. Nowadays, you don't have centers. You have stretch forwards. This guy is unstoppable. It would be amazing, like a dream matchup to watch him versus Shaq. I think Shaq would have taken him, obviously. But he had essentially a limited game in terms of scoring. He had poor free throws. 51% career. Not great. And he had that finger roll that he used to do. That it's a beautiful finger roll. But 2 titles. Obviously, Elgin Baylor had 0. He has 2. So he should be up there. But from the NBA record book to basically have only 2 titles, comparing to all the other centers that came after him and that kind of thing, I just couldn't put him in the top 10. Stats alone, yes, but it's not all about stats for me. So I can't put Chamberlain in there. He's spectacular, and he's the only person I know, based on research and highlights that I've looked at and everything, that blocked Abdul-Jabbar's skyhook, the most unstoppable shot in the history of the league. He blocked it. He blocked it. Not all the time, obviously, and Abdul-Jabbar had his way with him also. It was a beautiful matchup. If you look at try to look highlights of Will Chamberlain look up highlights of Chamberlain versus Abdul-Jabbar, man, you're going to have so much fun watching how they go at each other. It's just spectacular. So, that brings me to my final honorable mention, and that is one of my favorite players. There's very few people that I consider my favorite, but this guy is an innovator. That guy is revolutionary. He changed the game forever. He was Jordan before Jordan. He was Magic before Magic. He was just ridiculous. And this is the player, and even though it sounds a little bit contradictory to what I said about Chamberlain and Angel Baylor, if he had 1 title, he would be in the top 10 for me. He had that much of an impact. And that is Pete Maravich. Pistol Pete Maravich. Played from 1970 to 1980, exactly 10 years. He averaged 24 points per game, a little over 4 rebounds a game, and 5.5 assists almost a game. No 3-point line. And this guy was mostly long range. This guy is a ridiculously innovative player, like a scorer, passer, whatever you want, dribbler, whatever you want. For example, just look at the clip below. Look at the clip below of him showing something to Red Auerbach.
Let me see another one.
Well, I'd like to call this what I call my wrist pass, and this is a very...
Watch this one. I saw that. Well, you won't believe it. Watch this one.
Very deceptive pass. Usually on a 3-on-1 situation, you start out throwing the ball in this direction like you're going to throw it out to this man coming in, and actually what happens is it goes the other way. So it's a very good deceptive pass.
Don't try it. Don't try
Ridiculous.
It's very tough on your elbows.
It's ridiculous.
Come on. This is Red Auerbach, one of the greatest coaches in the history of the league, this guy is all about fundamentals. The league was all about fundamentals. This guy said, fuck fundamentals. Let me have fun. When the NBA was suffering in the 70s, this guy put seats and put the people in their seats. Or jumped out of their seats. I mean, they showed up to the arena. And that is in fucking Utah. Okay? He played for Atlanta. He played for Utah. Had one last season in Boston, which in 1980, which they introduced the three-point line at the time. And he only took 15 shots. He barely played. He was mostly a bench, limited minutes kind of thing. He took 15 shots in total, made 10. That was at the end of his career, after injuries, after all that stuff. Man, in his prime, forget it. The guy scored 68 points against the Knicks like a few years earlier. If there was a three-point line at the time, that would have been easily 80 points. Easily 80 points. Watch that game. It is just awesome. He scored 68 points against the Knicks. I mean, he won a scoring title and everything. I mean, Elgin Baylor himself said, Jerry West was the best I've ever played with, and Pete was the best I've ever seen. This is high praise from an amazing player. There's plenty of accolades. You look at interviews with Bill Walton. You look at this guy, just ridiculous. He's just awesome. Just needed that one title. Just one title. I would have put him in the top 10. I would have found a way of squeezing him in there. Alright, so these are my 3 honorable mentions. Learn about them. Go for it. Like, look at documentaries, like highlights, whatever you want. Just, these are amazing players. They're worthy of getting to know. So let's go on with the bottom 5. So with the number 10, I had to go with Mr. Championships himself, with Bill Russell. Okay, I mean, look, he has to be on the list just because of the fact that he has 11 fucking rings. 11. Okay, he lost twice in his entire 13-year career. Okay, he did win a championship twice. One of them was 1957, which was his second year in the league, and one in 1967 to Will Chamberlain and Philadelphia 76ers. Was it 76ers at the time? Philadelphia. He played for Philadelphia. Ridiculous. No, not only that. The last 4 championships, 66, 67, 68, 69, he won them as a player coach. As a player coach. Now, imagine how ridiculous that is. Averaging 15 points a game career, 22.5 rebounds career a game, 4.3 assists career game, and being a 4-time champion as a coach, as well as 11-time champion as a player. Does it get 2 rings for that? How does that work? Because coaches get a ring also, I think. So what, he has the 15 rings now? I mean, this... Look, if you look at all the greats, Pat Riley, he won as a player. I think it was on the Laker team in 72 when they won. Phil Jackson was with the Knicks when they won. And obviously they won championship as coach. But not at the same fucking time. So, this guy dominated the greatest offensive stats maker, let's put it this way, because Chamberlain had magnificent, incredible offensive stats on top of having virtually the same amount of rebounds career-wise. He dominated him. Okay? Now, it shows that team play and defense and fucking intellect, it carries more weight than stuffing the stat sheets. Chamberlain was supposed to win in his 14-year career at least 5. I mean, come on. You lost. I mean, I know it was at the later end of his career, but Chamberlain lost to the Knicks. Chamberlain lost, obviously, to Russell. He beat him only once. Russell, the entire 60s decade was literally owned by Russell. Nobody else can say that. Yes, you have people who dominated the decade. You have people that were majorly influential. But I mean, to literally own a decade, 7 championships in a row, 11 in 13 years against Will Chamberlain? who we know had like awesome matchups against Abdul-Jabbar, who obviously stretched into the 80s. If you do like any kind of like connective tissue to see like head-to-head matchups, Bill Russell did face Will Chamberlain and dominated him. Will Chamberlain did face Abdul-Jabbar and like not necessarily dominate, but let's put it this way, they were on equal footing. You had Abdul-Jabbar that stretched into today's NBA game. So I mean, you can do like a proxy comparison and see that like this guy was no joke. He deserves to be on the top 10. It's just simple. Now, when we got number 9, we're gonna go to number 9, and Tim Duncan for me was number 9. Okay? This guy revolutionized the franchise. You're talking about a franchise that had George Gervin, that had was Artis Gilmore in San Antonio? I think he was. Well, for a certain part, whatever. It was George Gervin's team. They were always competing. They were always contending. You had David Robinson that was in there. That was a it was an MVP. He was a quadruple double player. He was Rookie of the Year. Whatever the fuck you want. As soon as Tim Duncan came in, Duncan, that's yours. I'll play backup. That's after 10 years in the league. Duncan took him to the promised land. Now, why is he above Russell? Because of the decade. He played in a much tougher decade than Russell did. He had much more, he was stronger, he was faster, he was taller. I mean, granted, that Bill Russell faced against Will Chamberlain, but there was what, like 8 teams in the 60s? I mean, not exactly a lot to choose from. The odds of the Celtics and Lakers meeting in the final were pretty big. In the 90s, or like 1999 when the first one? I mean, the Duncan was drafted like in 96. 99, got a title, and basically was winning consistently throughout his 19-year career. 19-year career of constantly winning and being all the time, not to mention like a shoo-in for the playoff, but like a serious threat to be in the finals and winning a championship. Duncan, with his team, with the Popovich system, he beat LeBron, he beat Shaq, Shaq and Kobe. He beat practically everybody. So Duncan for me is a number 9. Why isn't he higher? Because the exact same things that made him great. He was part of a system that fit him perfectly well. He didn't mind sharing the load, which is not a bad thing. I mean, obviously it shows a great intellect and great leadership skills and knowing what you can contribute, what you cannot contribute. But he could not do it without those core guys. He couldn't do it without Popovich. I don't even know. I mean, obviously only played under Popovich, but we wouldn't know. He is an amazing, phenomenal, ass-kicking player. There's no denying that. The guy is just awesome. So for me, number 9. Number 8, Shaq. And for me, it's the most disappointing ranking that I can think of, because Shaq is one of my favorite players. The problem is, in his 19-year career, basically the last 6 were bullshit. Didn't keep in shape, didn't produce. It's as if like he was riding the wave. He didn't seem to be as hungry anymore for me. With Orlando, took his team to the final like that. Defeated Jordan in the playoffs like that. Got swept by Olajuwon, not a crime, but the second half of your career, he basically just coasted through. The guy should have had at least 7 championships. If he would have been a little bit more in shape, a little bit more wiser, a little bit took better care of himself, was maybe slightly a little bit better at free throws, he would also be in the 30,000 point club. He has impressive numbers, obviously. In 19 seasons, 4 championships, 23.7 points per game, 11 rebounds a game, 2.5 assists per game. But those numbers should have been higher, especially the championships. Fuck the MVP, scoring title, that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter at all. He should have been easily top 5. When you think top 5 greatest of all time, Shaq should be one of the first thoughts. Had he taken better care of himself? So, for me, I mean, obviously, you compare Shaq to Bill Russell. Shaq dominated Duncan. I mean, they had head-to-head matchups, obviously. So, it was great battles with Shaq winning those matchups. So, obviously, I put him above Duncan. Number 7, that's where most people probably won't agree, is LeBron James. Not because he only has 3 championships, not because he lost in the finals the amount of times that he did. He is in the 7th spot because all of those that I put above him, I would take them over him. He has some clutch potential, but he didn't really earn his titles with the exception of the come from behind victory over Golden State. That for me legitimizes his career. And when you have the characteristics, like you were more worried about your image, more worried about your persona and just the insecurity that person has. I mean, look, he congratulated himself the game before about reaching the 30,000 points. He pushes the agenda that he's King James. I remember, like, besides that decision videotape, which was the dumbest fucking idea ever, and just not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6, and you basically walk away with 2. Obviously, you can't pull it off. And there's another video out there, I forgot the name, but the guy basically mentioned everything that I thought about, he put it into words. So basically, I agree with him 100%. You lost to Dirk Nowitzki. Great player. Not in my top 10. Not in most people's top 10. But you lost to him, and you had nobody. You basically, LeBron needed Dwayne Wade, and he needed Chris Bosh. He needed those role players around him. And as opposed to back in the day where it was more the executives who ran the teams as opposed to the player leading the basketball team. All right, our combined forces, we'll do it ourselves. Copying essentially the Celtics, like the big 3, Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen, and Paul Pierce. LeBron, like when you're so insecure, when somebody dunks in your face at a summer camp and you confiscate all the cameras, you are an insecure player. Yes, you flex your muscle, everything like that. But if I take LeBron James, I put him in the 1980s where everybody just beats the fuck out of him. You know, he doesn't have the open space to do whatever he wants. Those numbers are not the same. Let alone make the playoffs. Fuck making the playoffs. Like make the finals, I mean. He is more worried at times, it seems, about his finances and about his image and about his brand. Not about the game. There's a reason why LeBron never signs long-term extensions, because he's looking to maximize his brand. The game, once it gets to like 40,000 career points, because there's a very good chance he might become the all-time total point scorer. Then he'll retire, and because he can't catch any of the significant top 3, 4, 5, whatever. He can't catch them in rings. Okay, at least I get those stats. I'll stop my stat sheet so I'm in the conversation. Because of those type of stats, that's one of the reasons Will Chamberlain is not in my top 10. It's not about the stats. Dominance and winning, the decade, and the stats. Stats you have, they're impressive, they're nice. LeBron takes care of himself really well. No real injuries in 15 years and going. Knock on wood, stay healthy until you decide to leave. But it doesn't change the type of person, the type of player you are. So for me, number 7. Now, number 6 for me, Kobe Bryant. Now, he came into the league basically a photocopy of Michael Jordan. Same style of play, same fadeaway, same thing, same that, same that. Oh, by the way, LeBron didn't go to the dunk contest. Even Kobe Bryant went to the dunk contest. Why? Because Michael Jordan did. Because Dominic Wilkins did it. Because it's about the show for the fans. Kobe Bryant, 20 seasons with the Lakers, 25 points per game, 5.2 rebounds per game, 4.7 assists per game. You can't, 5 titles. Yeah, people say, okay, Shaq carried him, he carried Shaq. Doesn't matter. He proved that he can win without Shaq. Back to back. Against the Celtics. The only player besides Magic Johnson to defeat a Celtics team. This guy is a beast. He's a beast. The guy cared about winning. And it's easy to say all I want to do is win. Kobe was about winning. Not the greatest personality. I don't give a shit. You don't have to be Mr. Charming to be a cutthroat player. But you know, sometimes it helps. Kobe Bryant for me is the number 6 player. Why is he only the number 6 player? And why is he ranked above LeBron? Exactly because of what I mentioned. And why is he above Shaq? Because he took care of himself the best amount possible. He didn't coast. He always wanted to go for the win. Shaq coasted. The last 5 seasons of his career, he went Dwight Howard basically. Obviously, more talent than Bill Russell. The number 6 spot seems logical to me. If, let's say, out of all those 5, you had to pick a starting player, I would pick Kobe over LeBron, over Shaq, over Tim Duncan. I would go over Russell. I would pick them. I'd pick him. So these are my bottom 5 of my top 10. So let's get it on with my top 5. All right, so now we're at the top 5 of my list. Let's start with number 5, and for me, it's none other than the incredible Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Not enough you can say about this guy. The owner of the most deadliest, unstoppable shot in the game that nobody has enough talent to even try and consider doing. It's the skyhook. Taking a skyhook from practically almost the 3-point line. He had unlimited range with that shot. And obviously a gigantic threat inside, amazing blocker, defender, the whole thing. Just look up any kind of highlights of him going up against Will Chamberlain, just to let you know that in the 70s he was deadly. Definitely he was amazing in the 80s. He had more talent at his disposal. That's why I put him ahead of Shaq. That's why I put him ahead of Bill Russell. That's why I put him ahead of Tim Duncan. Everybody, even LeBron. Because in that time, the game was closer. The game was tougher. Everything was going through his center. And there's not as much open space. Nowadays, the players now cannot go back into the 80s and do what they do. Because they don't have the toughness, the mental toughness, the physical toughness, the endurance to do what they did back then. Abdul-Jabbar is a prime example of just pure greatness. 6 championships in 20 seasons, 24.6 points per game, 11.2 rebounds per game, 3.6 assists per game. Stats were never ever his issue. He won at every level, college, high school, he just wins. And you put him up against any center in today's game, just destroy their asses, just split them apart. Abdul-Jabbar is number 5. Number 4 for me, the most what the fuck type of moment, in my opinion, it's this one. And it's none other than Hakeem the Dream Olajuwon. The guy has a skill set that you don't expect in a center. Nobody, like the younger generation now, do you even know who Hakeem Olajuwon is? The guy is 7'1" or 7'2", like 3,000 plus career blocks. I mean, the guy won 2 titles, 21.8 points per game, 11.1 rebounds a game, 2.5 assists per game. The guy moves like a guard, tough like a center, unlimited skill set. I put him against Abdul-Jabbar, like ahead of Abdul-Jabbar, because he's better at the free throw line. He's better at long range shots. He has much more quickness. I mean, I put him in front of Hakeem because if Hakeem's skyhook doesn't fall for some reason, which usually it does, but if it doesn't, he doesn't really have other weapons. You know, Shaq, dunking and maybe laying it off the board here and there. Nobody ever looked at Shaq and said, okay, his outside game is deadly. Same goes for Bill Russell. Same for, well, the only close comparison in the bottom 5 is Tim Duncan. He had like a slightly longer range, but his natural position is a power forward. As a center against Hakeem in his prime, no chance at all. Like LeBron James could not, if let's say he played in the 90s rule, which at the time you still could hand check, was still more physical than today's game. He would not be able to get on him, like get on top of him in terms of dominating him, like on a matchup. Just not doable. Michael Jordan himself said that he's so lucky that Hakeem, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit, that they, as in the Houston Rockets, can't find their way out of the West because they don't have an answer for him. They, as in the Chicago Bulls. The Bulls don't have an answer for Hakeem Olajuwon. So everybody's talking about the hypothetical matchup of Houston versus Chicago. Michael Jordan himself said, we don't have an answer for Hakeem Olajuwon. They have an answer against Patrick Ewing. They have an answer against David Robinson, against Shaquille, against everybody. They don't have an answer against them. And out of everybody on the list, he's the only one who won a title essentially with not a single other superstar. In '94, when they won, Kenny Smith, Cedric Maxwell, Otis Thorpe, Robert Horry, Mario Elie. Yeah, amazing players, but they're not one of the all-time greats. I mean, if you look at the bottom 5, you have Kobe and Shaq. That duo alone was the reason they won 3 titles. Yes, you had the role players, but if either one of them was not on the team, they could not win. Kobe needed another center, and Shaq needed another off guard, and he's the only one out of the entire top 10 that did it kind of on his own, as being the sole superstar. I mean, you want to learn how to be a center, you want to be one of the greatest centers who ever lived, you modeled your game after Hakeem Olajuwon. It's that simple for me. The number 3 on my list is none other than Larry Joe Bird. Larry Legend. Larry the Magnificent, as far as I'm concerned. Couldn't jump high, couldn't run fast. The greatest shooter in the league. The greatest clutch shooter in the history of the league. The greatest competitor. Look, he came in as a rookie at the age of 23 or 24. Okay? He didn't come in at 19, 20 like everybody else comes nowadays. He came in 3 years later. He came in, took a worse team in the Celtics the year before into the best record of the NBA. He won 3 titles, 5 appearances. You cannot, like, the greatest trash talker that ever lived. Like, the guy was not concerned about his image. For me, Larry Bird is better than LeBron James. They play the same position. He's way better. First of all, better free throw shooter. LeBron James is soft compared to basically mostly everybody on this list. Larry Bird got into so many fights. Larry Bird was not worried about his image. Larry Bird needed challenges because it's almost as if the game was boring. Okay? When he used to tell the opponents what would the play. You guys don't have to worry about a thing. I'm going to get the ball right here. I'm going to shoot in your face. And he did it. The only player I can think of that would tell anybody the play, tell him exactly where it's going to be, shoot in people's faces, and win. Unstoppable, basically. He played hurt so many times, so many injuries that he has. The guy had his eye pop out of his socket. The guy, like, you know, got into fights with Dr. J. Like, he went through the Pistons. Like, the guy fought everybody. Like, he's the toughest, most driven player that there is. Like, one of the top ones. And he performed. Always. He would play hurt. He would play injured. He would play through whatever. Everybody's talking about the flu games of Michael Jordan. Look at the injury list that Larry Bird sustained and how hard he played. This guy is amazing. I mean, 24.3 points a game, 10 rebounds a game, 6.3 assists per game in 13 seasons, 3 titles. The guy was almost career stats are part. He's in the 50-40-90 club. 50% field goal, 40 from 3 points. I mean, he's off like 49%, 38 from 3, and like 89 from the line. Like, he's right there. Career. He's just an unbelievable player. So for me, that for me is the number 3 spot, Larry Bird. The number 2 is none other than the great Michael Air Jordan. The greatest scorer in the history of the league. Nobody can score the basketball like him. You want to dunk in your face, you want to fade away, you want a 3-pointer, you want like a finger roll, whatever. The way that this guy scores and the way that this guy is built, it's perfect. He has the nicest form on when he shoots. Like, it's the nicest shot that I've ever seen. Like, the form and everything. It's the way that he's built, the speed that he has, and the creative thinking that he has in terms of how to just manipulate his hands to get the basket in the hoop. Get the ball in the hoop. He's the greatest scorer. Absolutely. Anybody who's only points oriented, model after Michael Jordan. Had he played and produced the same type of winning in the 80s that he did in the 90s, would not even be close. He would be the greatest player, in my opinion, as well. But the reason it's not number 1 is because it did not defeat the best teams, in my opinion. And that brings me to the greatest player, the greatest winner in the modern era of basketball. It's Earvin Magic Johnson. For me, complete package. You say, you know, when you say, the person can play 5 positions in the game. Yeah, can. Has he? How many other guys do you know took jump ball in a finals game? In a playoff, in a finals? Because the center, the star, the main weapon was not there. The only rookie to win finals MVP. And arguably the greatest, definitely one of the greatest playoff performances ever. Hasn't been done before and hasn't been done since. 42 points, 15 boards, 7 assists, 3 steals, a block, 60% shooting, like perfect from a free throw line. Just incredible, unbelievable. Defeated the toughest opponents. Dr. J's team in a head-to-head matchup, 2-1. Defeated Bird in a head-to-head matchup, 2-1. Bad Boy Pistons, he defeated them. I mean, they met twice, so it was 1-1. The entire 80s, he was in the finals 8 times. That decade was dominated by him. In 91, after being in the final yet again and losing to Michael Jordan, he had to retire from HIV because of the HIV virus, and he couldn't continue playing. Had he continued playing, I can guarantee you he would have been in the finals at least one more time, if not two. He would have won at least one more ring, because it was basically one superstar away from doing that. Michael Jordan had Pippen, had Horace Grant when he defeated Magic. Magic had Vlade Divac. Byron Scott was awesome, don't get me wrong. Eldon Campbell was awesome, don't get me wrong. AC Green also, but he didn't have that superstar with him the way that Michael Jordan had. One player to play off of. I mean, yeah, he had James Worthy, but James Worthy is a liability. He gets too much credit for anything. The guy is a fucking disaster. Sorry. Definitely not a Worthy fan, because every time I see a game with him, and back then and now when I rewatch, I get just incredibly frustrated with this guy. Magic Johnson won with 2 different coaches. He went to the finals with under 3 different coaches. The most adaptable player you'll see. He came off the bench voluntarily in '96, and as a power forward. He started his career officially, was listed as a shooting guard, then as a point guard. '96, he bulked up a bit, came off the bench as a power forward. Still kicked some major ass. Just look at the games. The guy was amazing. In '96, like, he could still do hook shots from long range. He could still do those amazing passes. He could still shoot. I mean, he was shooting in his 16th year. Essentially, he was shooting, what was it? 38.5% from three-point line. Had his minutes not been reduced, or had he kept playing since, like, that would have been his 16th season. He played 13, and we have to count that as a 13, but even though it's kind of 12. That one was like more to come back and retire on his own terms. The guy basically averages a triple-double for a season. 19.5 points per game, 7.2 rebounds a game, 11.2 assists per game. The best playmaker, the best offensive weapon that you can think of. If the name of the game is to put the ball in the hoop, you want Magic Johnson there. Because he knows where to find the best position player to put the ball in the hoop. And if not, he'll do it himself. The guy was clutch. He was clutch. Game on the line, he will make the right play to the right person, or take it himself and do it. Just look at highlights. How many buzzer beaters he's had. How many shots in people's faces he had. You know, like people say, oh no, he can't shoot very well. He can shoot very well. He averages career 52% from the field goal percentage. You get that from what? Like everybody just, he scores those points during a timeout? The guy knows how to get the ball in the basket. If it's not by him, it's by somebody else. And an assist is harder to make than a basket. I invite you guys to watch my Magic Johnson video. I said it before. I know it's a really long ass video. I have shortcuts in there. Use them. Watch them in parts. I think you'd find it informative, and maybe even understand the case that I was trying to make, and why, in my opinion, Magic Johnson is the greatest player in the history of the league. So there you go, guys. This is my list, ladies and gentlemen. Agree with it, don't agree with it, leave me your comments. Please like, please subscribe, show some love, and yeah, I'm hope you enjoy it. Till next time.